Right now, let's talk about rather more serious issues at 9:41 on Talk Radio. A demonstration was held yesterday outside the Royal Courts of Justice as Heidi Crowter, who's 26 from Coventry, was one of three claimants whose case against the UK government at the High Court began. She's a woman with Down syndrome, and she, along with her colleagues, is challenging the abortion law stance on babies with the condition, saying the legislation doesn't respect her life. To all intents and purposes, it is illegal to allow abortions up to birth for babies with the condition. And those claimants claim this is downright discrimination. Lynn Murray is joining us. She's from Don't Screen Us Out, Down Syndrome Campaign Group. Good morning to you, Lynn.
Good morning, Julia.
This is a very, very serious issue, and it's going to be a very, very sensitive issue for a lot of people, not just people with Down syndrome, parents of and family members of those with Down syndrome, but also huge number of couples who have had the pregnancies, been told they've got the high likelihood of having a Down syndrome baby, and as we know, the vast majority of those, some 90% plus, do actually choose at that point to terminate the pregnancy, not to have a Down syndrome baby. The basis of this case, though, is the crucial idea that Down syndrome's babies sort of have no right to life until the point they're born, whereas children otherwise, healthy children without the syndrome, are considered to have a right to life long before then. Is that the key stance there?
Yes, I guess it is. So I suppose what we're saying is there is protection in law offered to babies that are non-disabled after 24 weeks. But if a baby is found to have a disability, then that same protection doesn't extend to them.
Do we often see? We know that even in terms of abortions after 24 weeks, even with children with expected to have severe disabilities, that we are talking about very, very, very low numbers.
Yes, that's exactly it. We are talking about very low numbers because obviously disability is something that is a minority in our society. There are like 700 people with Down syndrome born each year, and a similar number are aborted. So the numbers are very low. The point about this judicial review is that it's discrimination in law, and we feel that it's time that was removed from law because we now have the Equality Act, and we have had Equality Acts for quite some time now, and every law should sort of take heed of that, including abortion law.
So you're saying that a mother should not have the right to, finding out, say, at 4 months, 6 months, that her child has Down syndrome. Perhaps the tests were not very clear until that point, or was not able to get the test, didn't know she was pregnant, perhaps has been the case. That she should not be legally allowed to terminate her pregnancy. She should have to continue with the birth with a baby that she herself would prefer not to be having. We get into some very difficult moral territory here, don't we?
Yeah, I think that is the case. It is difficult in some respects, but I suppose for us, this review is about the law and how it sits and the discrimination within it, and that has to be sorted. Issues around time limits are a sort of another debate and a wider issue, but that's not what this case is about. This is about the discrimination that's set into law, which has been around for a long time.
Is it possible, though, to say that, of course, a person with Downs who's born has equal value, has equal moral and value to not just to the society at large, but of course to their families? We know many families with children who have been born with Downs, have very, very happy lives and long and pretty healthy lives as well. It used to be the case many years ago that wouldn't be the case, but now the scientific and medical advances that is the case. But is it possible to say, look, of course that baby has a value and moral value, but that has to be weighed against the needs of the family, the desires of the mum, perhaps parents who don't want to, perhaps they've got 2 or 3 children already, or just one child, don't want to bring in a severely disabled child into their home life, which would have a long-term effect perhaps on their own children, their other children. Is it possible to I suppose hold those two views in your head at the same time, or do you think that it just makes a nonsense of trying to have a moral argument about this?
Well, the fact is that Down syndrome is not the tragedy that people think it is. Yeah. And that people have a good life, and that research tells us that people, apart from I'm going to tell you it's a good life, research tells us that it's a good life. Lots of our siblings go into caring professions. But we still have an issue in society around discrimination. It's quite difficult sometimes for people with Down syndrome to get into the school of their choice, to get jobs, etc. So, there's still an inherent problem in society, and, society almost owes these people something, because for many years, children were directed off to institutions where they failed to thrive, and now they're in society, but there's often this stigma, and you can be doorstepped in terms of, oh, your child has Down syndrome. I don't think she'll be happy at this school, as I personally know.
People making decisions for you. Just finally, I mean, in terms of what can happen at the end of this court case, as the law stands, any fetus up to any point before birth with Down syndrome could be terminated up to birth. What do you think will change? Is this about changing attitudes as much as changing the law, or just getting people to question this and getting the medics to think differently about this, and perhaps even the parents, so that they don't believe that as soon as they get a conversation with the doctor saying, look, you're likely to have a Down syndrome baby, they don't automatically go to aborting their child? Or what do you want to change?
Yeah, I think you've got all the components there. I think this itself has raised a lot of awareness among people. People from the media that I've spoken to in the last couple of days have been saying, we didn't know this was the case. So there's been lots of discussion around that. And yes, to try and to break it, especially with prenatal screening, to break that link between screening and abortion, because as you say, a vast majority of women do abort, and we know that within the NHS there's probably not the experience of Down syndrome, and the culture has to be sort of looked at in that respect.
Okay, thank you very much for talking to us. I'm sure this case will be very interesting to follow, and a lot of big questions, moral questions raised by it. Lynn Murray from Don't Screen Us Out, a Down syndrome campaign group.